Thanks for
Unmute.
that, Robert.
Ask away.
Does anyone have any questions about competing templates or styles, or any confirmations that they have the same feelings that Robert was having? Does anybody have any of those experiences to share?
I'd like to ask if it's possible to alter the layout of the out-of-the-box displays using CSS.
In which way? In the Tall and True website?
Well, in any of the in any of the plugins you mentioned, in saying you know, this layout isn't as good as that one, but
yes. So good question. So to recap, and let's focus on the Joomla version of these things. I've done a lot of. Sorry, I'm looking up at the screen now. I'll look down at the camera instead. I've done a lot of CSS hacking with the website to get it to look in a particular way. The initial website, if you went to JA Mags and you saw the magazine template, you'd recognise Tall and True in that. You can see the ancestor in it, but there are some things that I've done, some tweaks I've had to make, and I've done that through CSS and so forth. When I started looking at the comments, Discus, I didn't have to do anything with it. I had to have an account. I plugged it in. It appeared beautifully underneath my comments. And frankly, I didn't really want to move away from it. I was quite happy with it. But there were things that I read, there were concerns that I had in various forums, WordPress forums and in Joomla forums about the on-selling of data and so forth. And
that's enough, love.
Sorry?
Sorry.
That's okay. And you know, that's, I can only go on what I read, and I thought, well, that's not so good. And I did find too, when I removed it from my WordPress site, particularly, not so much the Joomla site, but when I removed it from the WordPress site, the performance was a lot better. It loaded a lot better. There were things that Discus were loading that weren't loading, and so I didn't need to worry about it anymore. So I thought, well, I'll go. I went down that RS Comments route because I've got RS Forms Pro. I love it. I think it's a great extension. I use it on Tall and True, and I use it on my dog club websites, and I've got a lot of time for it. I think RS Comments is not where they put all their effort, and I found that it just did not load the way I expected it to. To say that it was a bootstrap issue when RS Forms loads fine and doesn't muck up the displays, it just seemed a bit lame. I did try and have a look. I looked at the CSS and I thought, oh, well, I'll be able to go in there and tweak it this and tweak it that. But there were just too many things. And getting back to what I want to do with the website, I want the website to run. I want to get a sort of an out-of-the-box solution on the web as a website, and then focus on the content. That's what I want to do. I'm not a web developer. I write content, and that's what I wanted to focus on. So then when I saw the Joomla Shack blog post and they mentioned C comment, and I thought, well, you know what, I'll make it a lot easier for people to log in. And that has also been an issue. I've had people say to me, I wanted to post a comment on your blog, but I couldn't log in. I don't have a Discus account. I don't want to log in with Facebook or Twitter or Google. I don't blame them. I won't log in with Facebook, Twitter or Google either. So I wanted something simpler, and to me, this seemed to be a simpler way to do it. And in answer to you, I'm going to have to go in there and make a few CSS tweaks on it as well, because it doesn't quite, the button doesn't add a comment doesn't quite look right on it. So I've got to do that. But there's a minimal things. They're not major things for me to do. So that was my metric for it. Can I do this? Can I make the changes that I need to make with it? One, can I make them? Secondly, can I make it without too much hassle to myself, because I don't really want to spend a lot of time doing the coding side of it. And that's the answer to that, hopefully. Long-winded answer.
So do you hack the code, or do you use a CSS override code? And
I use CSS overrides wherever possible. I perhaps didn't use the word hack. I have hacked. I do make in the live website, there is one hack that I've made with the pagination. And that's a Joomla hack, and every time I update Joomla, I've got to go back there and I've got to fix that. But all the other changes I make are all done as overrides. They're all done as module overrides, or I've used the CSS to override. So it's, you know, I try and keep it as clean as possible, because again, there are updates, and I don't want to have to go back and make all the changes. again. I'm interested to know, I did look at EasyBlog years ago, and I mentioned that in the talk. I looked at EasyBlog in the very early days of Tall and True. And the reason I moved away from it was that the blog had one particular look and feel, and I could not get the main website to replicate that. I don't know that I was using JA Mag's template at the time. In fact, I'm pretty sure I wasn't. I stumbled on JA Mag's as a magazine template which had blog functionality, and I thought, well, that looks good. It looks like it's all been developed by one person. And so when I put that up on the website and the web, it'll look like it's all put out there by the same person. Whereas I felt with EasyBlog, and it was years ago, the EasyBlog, the buttons and everything all looked like it was developed by one person, and the website, whatever template I used, looked like it was developed by someone else. And I didn't want that look. But again, it was a long time ago, and I'm sure everything's moved along since then. But if somebody's got some experience of EasyBlog, I'd love to hear it.
Hey, Robert, just a comment. I'm not actually using EasyBlog, but there's another product from Stack of Ideas called Comento, which...
Very muffled, Tim.
Can you hear me better now?
Very slightly.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. So I've got one site where I'm using comments, and I just had a look to see what product it was using, and it's actually using Comento from Stack Ideas, which is the same vendor that does EasyBlog, but it's a comment-specific product. And I found that to be quite good. They used to offer a free version, but it doesn't look like they do anymore. But it may be another one worth looking at.
That's Comento with a K, is it?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
I've used EasyBlog quite a bit, Robert. I've got it going on about 5 websites.
Okay.
Can I say that I'm an RS Comments user?
Oh, good.
But I'm a big fan of the RS I have been for many years. I've used lots of other stuff as well. Line fits together, and because you pick different apps out of their product line, and they work more or less seamlessly, and they make sense across their interfaces. Now, the thing about RS Comments is, yes, you would have problems with it on a Joomla site in particular, because Joomla's template designs, their framework, are a little idiosyncratic. But that's just saying the same thing about any other template provider. They got their framework, they ship on top of it, and they ship apps around it. Now, I get away with RS Comments because I also use a lot of RS Joomla templates. So I have very little trouble with it, and it behaves itself nicely on the sites where I've used it because the template cooperates with it. And to my way, I mean, I've always tried to pick products out of a stable, okay, because I just find it less maintenance overhead and less cost and less unreliability in the long term. So that's my context for RS Comments. Within that context, I was happy with it, and I was particularly happy that I was controlling the comment streams and the responses and the authorizations and reports and all the rest of that stuff on the one site. And I could hook all of that stuff to any promotion, CRM type thing that I might be using on the same template. I could feed comment data back into promotion if I chose to do so. So that's my theory.
Yeah, I'd like to. I sound harsh on, and I do. Maybe it's just because I got a bit frustrated. But your comment is absolutely right. What I saw of because I bought a license of it. What I played around with it on their demo site, and what I saw in the back end and the way the front end looked and everything was fine. It was absolutely fine. And I thought, well, RS forms is working on my site, so this is going to work a treat as well. But it came down to the bootstrap.
Yeah. I couldn't get it to work on a Joomla site either.
Ah, there we go.
I got tired of it on Joomla sites.
Yeah, well, apparently they're loading Bootstrap 3, and this is running Bootstrap 2 point something or other. And I said to them, well, what about RS Forms? It works. And they said that they loaded a number of different other Bootstrap things in order to get it.
Yes, they did. They ship half a dozen frameworks under RS Forms, but not their other products.
Yeah.
Because for their other products, their philosophy is to stick to the Joomla platform standard, which is Bootstrap 2. Yeah. And that's what you get.
Yeah. I guess, again, I got down to the point where I'd spent 2 years on this template, and I can't move from it in a hurry. But I also, the point you make about not going too far.
Oh, yeah.
I'm the same. I try to limit the number of extensions. I try to keep it to those people that I know. So for me to go to a third party, I wanted to stay with either the template developer or one of the other people who developed the extensions that I'm using already, because I thought that would be the safer route to go. But now I'm kind of keen just to get rid of Discus, and I. Again, I think Nikki uses Discus, and it looks good. It looks really good. It's got all these lovely little bits of functionality. But
a lot of people do. Yeah.
Yeah. I just found that if there were people that were not I had people not commenting and then getting back to me and saying, well, I can't comment because I don't have a Discus account, and I'm not logging in with my Facebook, and I'm not logging in with Twitter and so forth. Then I thought, well, that's putting people off commenting, and I want people to comment on this, on the writing and the blog posts. Does the Easy Blog site, the look and feel of the Easy Blog, is there sort of a distinct feel that
there is?
The website to the blog?
They have about 15 built-in themes that you can choose these days, Robert.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, to be fair, about 10 of them look pretty much the same, with some slight colour variations. I think there's kind of mosaic one and stuff as well. I've had really good feedback from customers using it as a tool to publish their blogs, in terms of they find it easier and easy. And I've just got them using JCE editor. I'm not using. Easy Blog does have a block editor, like a page builder, which you can use, but I'm not a fan of them, and neither were the clients that were using it. Basically, they were familiar with using JCE from the other parts of the site, so they were happy to use that, but they liked being able to select a cover image and do some very blog-like things like that. But one thing I would say, I've implemented it on a couple of very designed sites, and it's hard work. Its template structure is a rabbit warren, which on one level is good because they've really broken everything down into small elements. But you can spend an hour just trying to find one particular template. So.
I got to go. See you guys. Thank you so much. Thanks, Robert.
See you, Neil.
Take care. See you next time, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Robert, I was going to say we all have different likes and dislikes in components and plugins and that we use, but I spent a lot of time and went over and visited the guys in Malaysia with Easy Blog.
Okay, yeah.
And I can tell you now I wouldn't use it anymore. The reason being, well, there's a couple of reasons, but the main reason is the fact that it loads up so much extra that you don't necessarily need. I've gone backwards to using vanilla Joomla blogging now and just fixing that with CSS overrides and so on to the look and feel I want. I will say what Tim said, their product they got called Commento, I love, it's great. It used to be free and now you pay for it, but that's fine. I don't mind paying for anything.
I don't mind
either. And if you want to get outside of, like you don't want to do vanilla Joomla blog posting, then from there you head out to, there's a mile of other blogging components that are much easier to install and so on, and to change around the look and feel of. I think they grew from earlier days, they were a good blogging product. But as time goes on, they've kept adding more and more and more into it, to where it's like putting a second version of Joomla on your site now just to have a blogging interface. which at the end of the day, you don't really need anyway. It's already built into Joomla.
I'm going to beg to differ. You know, everyone has their
Of
preference.
course.
Well, I think that's the strength of the community, and I like the fact that this is what got me into Joomla in 2008. Really was the opportunity. The basics were there. You could get something up, and then you could go and get another extension, and make things look a little better and what have you. The downside of that, of course, is what Patrick and I were talking about the other day, is the rabbit holes. You know, I spent a lot of time looking at a lot of templates, and I was so pleased when I found JA Mags, and you know, it looks a bit dated now, which is unfortunate, but it was a magazine template, and it came with inbuilt blogging functionality, so I didn't have to think about another extension or anything along those lines, and that's worked well. What's forced me to sort of lift my game a little bit, and we talked about CSS, is going down that WordPress route, and the Divi Extra theme that I use with the page builder, that is a blogging theme. And my blog posts, I said that they look funky, but compared to some, they do not. There are some fantastic posts out there. And Brett, I'm sure you've done some fantastic posts with your design skills. And it's that's the thing that has led me to have to use CSS and so forth. And then I think, well, maybe I could get away with it if I could find a Joomla page builder so that I could position images in a particularly more attractive way without having to go down the CSS route. Although now what I've got is kind of like a library of CSS stuff. So if you look through the blog posts on the live Tall and True website, you'll start to see where I'm repeating myself, because if I've got a whole series of little images I want to do, I end up using like my bedside books layout. And so that's to my mind, it's that's one of the benefits that of WordPress has given me in terms of being able to look at how to build the posts and make them look attractive. But it's also been a bane, because that means I've got to go back and use CSS and really put my techie hat on when I want to focus on the writing. And once I've had the techie hat on for half a day, I can't write creatively. It's just not there. I need to be able to start the day writing creatively. The other thing that WordPress gave me, which I haven't got out of the box in Joomla, but I can then sort of retrofit it, is I use Yoast on WordPress for the SEO. And we haven't really touched on the SEO of blog posts, but it provided me with a lot of guidelines. And so if we move away again from the technical side, but from the way of crafting your posts, keeping your sentences shortish, making sure you break up your posts with headings, tying those headings into the heading of your actual blog post itself, using alt tags which refer back to the heading and to the key thing that you're trying to push, the keyword they use in Yoast. And so what I end up doing is I write my posts on Tall and True now as if I've got Yoast installed, and I think about it in that way. And that's been a great learning exercise for me. Whether that means they rank highly on SEO, I don't know, but I do know that Yoast tells me they do when I do WordPress, and so when I post them on WordPress. So that makes me feel good. But it is certainly something to think about with your blogs, and maybe something to think about passing on to your your customers as well when they're writing their blog posts. Because no one wants to read turgid prose, which has got hundreds of words in a sentence and lots of deep paragraphs. People want to read short and sharp things on. You might get away with reading that in a technical journal, but you won't get away with posting that to a blog post.
That's
again,
just basic SEO 101.
Yeah, it is. You're right, Jeff. You're right. But I got it from doing the stuff again. The articles, the blog posts that I do are different from the writing that I do. And the writing that I do, if it's a short story or something, I'm not going to put a whole bunch of headings throughout it, because that just doesn't work. But from the blog post point of view, you're absolutely right. It's 101, and these are things that we can consider. So no matter how pretty something looks, if the content's not right, then no one's going to read it, and it's not going to show up well in the SEO. But again, I'm interested to hear in the open discussion what others think of that.
I've used podcasts. Rather than writing my stuff up, I've created a podcast. And I'm trying to get anybody to go and visit it is a problem. Torty Talks. Yeah, Torty Talks is called. TORTYTALKS. Available on all good services. I'm wondering if it would be a valuable thing to do to create a blog display of the. Oh yes, you're over there. The blog display of the podcast links. Have you any experience of doing that?
Well, the thing with the podcasts, I think some of the most successful ones. Now, I think of a particularly successful one, WTF, with Mark Maron. If you look at his podcast links and so forth, if you go to the WTF pod website, which is built using the page builder. What is it called again? Oh God. It's escaped me. It'll come back to me at 2 in the morning, which is dreadful. It's not WordPress or anything like that. It's one of those. Tim, you know what it is. Where are you, Tim? It's one of those like Wix builders. Oh.
Weebly, Squarespace.
Squarespace, thank you.
Squarespace.
Prizes to Jack, Patrick there. Yeah, so it's built using Squarespace, but they present intros, the overviews of the blog, of the podcast and so forth in attractive ways on their website, and so that garners visitors, and then visitors will drill down. But of course, the other thing with podcasts is that you've got to get your ratings high on Apple or on Google or whatever other podcast platform, and the only way you're going to do that is by getting people to download it, to listen to it. So you've got to somehow drive people to your podcast, and whether you do that by making your podcast interesting and getting people to go and subscribe, to write reviews and so forth, or whether you do that then by a sort of a pincer approach where you do that and you also do a blog, and you do something like what WTF does. And I think that's a fantastic looking site. And it's a great example of using Squarespace, but I don't want to tie myself into that ecosystem.
No, nor do I. I've had to play with oh dear me. I can't remember what on earth it's called now.
That's okay. Both of us. Yeah. Maybe Patrick will know.
Yeah, it's I'll just go. It's Curves Are Us. Curves Are Us. Shopify. That's the fella.